Vinland Saga is a great anime that I feel many people slept on. So in today's video, I'm gonna let you know why I like this anime and help you decide whether or not Vinland Saga is for you. Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Vinland Saga. Now, I wasn't actually going to make a video on this anime because the second season was a bit iffy. Some people were saying it was going to be cancelled, but thankfully it has been announced that the second season will be coming sometime next year. But before we get into this review, I wanted to let you know I have a small goal for 2020. I really want to hit 300 subscribers by the end of this year. So if you're new to this channel and you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It will go a long way in reaching my goal. And if you want to see some more reviews, check out some of my older videos. But with that out of the way, let's get into this one. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, Vinland Saga is set in around 1000 AD, a time where Vikings roam the seas and there's a war between the English and the Danish. Our main character, Thorfinn, lives in a small village in Iceland. He grew up listening to tales of seafarers and adventurers and a utopian land named Vinland. Our story begins when Thorfinn's father is brutally murdered by some Vikings. Our main character's fate becomes intertwined with the leader of these Vikings, Askeladd. It's a story of growing up, manhood, and the experiences of death and war. It's a historical anime that's relatively accurate as far as names, location, time frame, and base mythology goes. But after that, it becomes its own thing. So as always, this review is going to be split into 4 key parts: music, animation, story, and most importantly, enjoyment. And at the end of the review, I'll be giving my judgment and my final rating on the series. Okay, so on to our first category, and that is music. The music suits the setting well with its olden style pianos and strings. It never really sounded bad, but it rarely stood out to me. So I think it's fair to give it a decent 7 out of 10. And so we come on to the first strong point of this anime, and that is animation. Now for some context, the Vinland Saga manga is very popular and is often associated with things like Berserk, Vagabond and Kingdom. Now as far as I know, none of these have had a really good anime adaptation and often is due to the animation. For example, the Berserk animation overused CGI and it had this really wacky look to it. And so many people feared that Vinland Saga would fall into a similar category, and I can say with confidence that it did not. The animation of Vinland Saga is smooth, it's fast-paced and very realistic. I feel as though with shonen anime, it's usually the fantasy genre that get the best animation, where you have loads of colours and these big creatures and monsters that you have to fight. For example, One Punch Man Season 1. But Vinland Saga has a very realistic and base colour palette, usually whites, greys, a few browns and greens here and there. But it still manages to do a really good job with animation. With a fantasy shonen anime, you don't know when the character's just going to vanish or teleport here or do something like that. But with Vinland Saga, every hit feels real. And so you become more wary and scared of the more strong characters, and you get a better idea of their strength levels and etc. And so overall, the animation, the character designs, everything is very solid. I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for animation. And so we come to story, which is, in my opinion, the strongest part of Vinland Saga. I think where this story really shines is in the character development. The development of Thorfinn from a sweet protagonist to an anti-hero of sorts is really interesting. Askeladd goes from the murderer of Thorfinn's father and the main antagonist to almost like Thorfinn's second father of sorts. You begin to like his character a lot more. It's this fluctuation between good and bad, not really knowing who to support, that makes this anime so interesting. If I was to make a little criticism though, one thing I will say though is that the character of Prince Canute was a little odd to me. He goes from this mellow, wouldn't hurt a fly character to this cold-hearted ruler sort of character in a matter of seconds. It felt kind of odd and slightly rushed. And also what I was saying about realism, it's both a strength and a weakness of this anime. It has some elements that are quite realistic, but then there's some bits that are just a little odd. For example, the fact that Thorfinn does a Naruto run at some points, that was a little odd. But aside from that, this story is really good. And so I'm gonna give it another 8 out of 10 for story. Now for enjoyment, the thing is, enjoyment comes also from accessibility. You don't want to be stressed finding this anime. And one of the reasons it lacked a lot of popularity was the fact that it's only available on Amazon Prime. For those of you that pay for things like Crunchyroll, Vinland Saga is not going to be there, but for the other 90% of you that use other ways of watching anime, Vinland Saga will be easy to find. But aside from accessibility, Vinland Saga was very, very enjoyable. And I think a part of this is the constant change that we see throughout the story. It is quite an action-heavy anime, but it delves into some really deep topics. And so for enjoyment, I think I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. And so for my overall rating, I think I'll give Vinland Saga an 8 out of 10. It's got decent music, a great storyline with amazing character development, and great animation. So yeah, I think that's fair. But who would I recommend this anime to? I think if you're into shonen and you want something a little different, maybe a little bit more realistic and historical, then I think Vinland Saga would be a great anime for you. This anime remains dark pretty much throughout the entire story, so for those of you that are only into slice of life and more light-hearted anime, this might not be a great anime for you. And with that comes the end of this video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please consider subscribing. Remember, we're trying to hit 300 subscribers by the end of this year. And so if you can help in any way, maybe sharing my channel to a friend who also likes anime, that would go a long way. But for now, I'll catch you in the next video. See ya!